Hi, welcome to Pathways to Peace Symposium. We are working on inner peace, interpersonal peace, and global peace. Hopefully, we're trying to figure out how to make this happen. So, thank you for joining us. And our next speaker is Bill Overton, EDD, and he is been a teacher for many, many years. And then he was a principal for a bunch of years on a school that specialized in social emotional learning, which is EQ in the academic world, and has some great perspective on how this works. I'm going to first show here's his intro. So you can see he's a regular kind of guy, but he knows some stuff that's pretty amazing that most people on the planet do not know. And he also has a great perspective, like I said, on teaching kids by not drilling stuff into them, but by bringing it out of them. So Bill, take it away, bud.
Okay, thank you. All right, contrary to what the picture says, I do own socks.
Excellent.
Thank you. And so,
right.
basically, when during my teaching career, I would do these long 5-month projects or so that were totally integrated. I call them going beyond project-based learning, which there is coincidentally a book about that on Amazon. But we do these big projects, and sometimes it was on kind of hypothetical things like going to a different planet. Sometimes it was also like things like making a difference or changing the world that I did a few times with 4th and 5th graders who are extraordinarily capable people. So this talk is going to be more about that. I do have another talk. I'm a substitute right now, so I'm just filling in for people. So at 11:30, I'm doing one about how to implement social emotional learning into your homes as well as schools and classrooms, based on my experience. But anyway, so when we do these projects, and the kids were all excited about changing the world or whatever else, and at varying degrees. And I'd always, when I talk to other adults about it, they would like collectively roll their eyes, and whenever you say you're going to change the world, or whenever you're going to say I'm going to make a difference, whatever, I think people don't believe you. So I thought, I think I'm going to share that experience, as well as some of the things I've learned that make that not so true. So if I'm going to share my screen, if you don't mind. And hopefully you all see it. So basically, I found there's actually 5 ways that you can make contact with everybody in the world without an extraordinary, complicated phone, wires or whatever. So anyway, so basically, we live in a fairly cynical world, and that most people only believe what they can see, touch, smell, use their experiences. But new science actually is telling us beyond Newtonian thinking, which is somewhat outdated, that there's other ways of seeing each other or communicating with each other on an atomic level. And there are other ways too that if we want to, making change is not so hard. An author, Deepak Chopra, you might have heard of, he doesn't understand why we haven't reached peace before or earlier on, because it really doesn't take a whole lot of thinking on our parts. It just takes a little bit of behavior changes. And there are other ways that we can touch everybody. So basically, Chopra, as I was mentioning, has several different ways of solving global problems and conflicts. I always wondered if these would work for a conflict with my daughter or my wife or a friend or something like that, or in the classroom. I've never tried these steps before, but I think they make a lot of sense. I think the one, believe in forgiveness, is a huge one, though. So there are about 5 ways that we can touch every person on the earth. Exponential growth, the ripple effect is, or pay it forward is another word for it. Considering the butterfly effect, realize that others before us have done it and continue to do it, as well as quantum physics has a scientific principle behind it, and then practicing peaceful ways. The first one with exponential growth, basically comes from this book, Ordinary Mary's Extraordinary Day, or Extraordinary Deed. And it's a great book for kids, it's a picture book, but it also, I think a lot of picture books are really good for adults. This one basically talks about Mary and how she does what we would call kind of pay it forward. So she did something and asked the person to do it 5 times. And we don't do really the math that much, but after only 7 days of basically doing something for 5 people and asking them to pay it forward 5 times, we've already reached over 15,000 people. And after 15 days, it's up to like 30 billion people. So basically all we have to do is kind of agree with ourselves to do something to pay it forward, a random act of kindness or something like that. Sometimes we call it the ripple effect, and I'm a firm believer in the ripple effect. The butterfly effect actually is a principle in physics. It's basically a minor change, such as flapping of wings by a butterfly, they say can create a storm, across the ocean. And what that means basically that every action has a reaction kind of thing. So everything we do, if we're kind to somebody, that has a way of creating phenomenal change without us knowing it. As I mentioned, it is a law of physics. It's called the law of sensitive dependence upon initial conditions. Say that a lot real fast. This basically accepted law of chaos theory that basically says the first movement of a mass can have a great and significant change on other masses, even over a great distance. So if we were part of something and took that first step or that first movement, that we have a chance of really affecting people that are thousands of miles away. And so again, hopefully we kind of think about that with our actions, our daily actions, and maybe think on a larger way of doing it. The butterfly effect actually has some things that people feel like are examples of it through history. There was a person applied to an art college way back in, I think, 1939 or something, actually more like 32, and was rejected. And that was Adolf Hitler. And basically because he didn't get into fine arts, he went another direction, which would be an example of the butterfly effect. Another one is that Ho Chi Minh from Vietnam years ago wrote a letter to President at the time, Woodrow Wilson, and Woodrow Wilson didn't, write back to him, and he was angry about that. And people basically say, kind of say that that's where the Vietnam War started years ago. So all these actions and reactions. Another strategy that you can know about people changing the world is that people who have gone before us have done it successfully. You've maybe heard of this statement from Rabbi Hillel, if not now, then when? If not you, then who? They attribute this to thousands of years ago. Actually, if you do the research, it's hard to find actually who actually said this, but it's attributed to Rabbi Hillel. This one's a good one. Dalai Lama is a world changer, in my opinion. If too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. Very wise person. And then Margaret Mead's statement that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And so, if you think about that and think about the ripple effect and think of these other things that you can make change, and maybe peace in our time is not that far away. And of course, Gandhi. I like the way he says you have to begin with children. Being a former teacher, I still consider myself a teacher and a principal, but it's kind of an important one. When we were doing these projects a few years ago, some people emerged, even at our school, of doing things that I would say are beyond what other kids or other people were doing. She was so moved by the Make a Difference projects that we were doing. Actually, this was a school-wide project, that she basically asked her mom to go out and buy loaves of day-old bread, and then they delivered them every morning to people that were homeless. And I thought that was really cool for a 5-year-old to be thinking that ahead of herself. And then maybe you're familiar with Craig Kilberger, who basically at age 11 ended up starting the biggest organization of kids helping kids in I think in the world, if not at least North America. He was an 11-year-old and was kind of going one morning, was going through the paper looking for the comics like he always did. And he basically came across, was stopped at this headline about this young child that was his age that was killed by what's called the carpet mafia in the Middle East somewhere. And I forget all the details, but basically he was moved by this kid being assassinated because he was speaking out against the child labor, the forced labor of kids tying knots on rugs, all day long. So he was moved by that, gathered a few people from his classroom, and they started talking to, Mother Teresa and to people at government figures in Canada. And now they have centers around the world and are a force to be reckoned with as far as global change, all for peace. Then there's this one that I'm really going to try hard to explain. There are principles in quantum physics that are accepted, now accepted. And so one of them is this: everything is connected by threads and particles that travel faster than the speed of light and are capable of communicating. Some of the people that have cited this are below, but there are many, many others. So this is kind of a given in quantum physics, that everything is connected by these threads or particles, depends if you believe in string theory or not. Anyway, so that's kind of an important thing, that we are all connected, as we may have heard other places. But even on a more atomic level, let me explain something about electrons. Electrons spin either on a horizontal axis or a vertical axis. This one you're seeing here is on a vertical axis. Two electrons next to each other orbit in opposite directions, if you can see the arrows there. And then when they connect, that they're on the same axis but opposite directions. So basically, scientists for the experiment separated the electrons over a distance. This is where I'm going to try hard to explain this. Basically, they separated the electrons that were connected over thousands of miles. And what they found, when the scientists changed the axis of one, it changed the axis of the other one thousands of miles away. When they changed the spin clockwise or counterclockwise, the other electron thousands of miles away also changed appropriately. So what are the conclusions there? Is basically that there are non-visible connections or particles that operate faster than the speed of light, which people didn't think there was anything faster than that, and everyone can connect everyone and everything. Otherwise, how would the electrons know which way to spin and would know which way to change? Some people believe that an example of this in our real world or other world is that the destruction of the Berlin Wall, which wasn't initially just a political thing. It was actually attributed to many different villages and people in East Germany that wanted a change, and they were connecting to each other, which is just kind of like the electrons. People explain gravity through this way. People explain schools of fish changing directions suddenly, too fast for fish to notice, but fast enough to be communicated this way. Flocks of birds too. Another way, in addition to the quantum physics way, is just practicing what ancient Vedic texts say. Basically, you're in a state of peace if you are living with Seva, Simran, and Satsang. In Seva, your actions harm no one and benefit everyone. Simran, if you remember your true nature and reason for being here. And Satsang, you belong in a community of peace and wisdom. So it's all up to us, depending on which way we want to believe or put our trust in or faith in. But it is, as Chopra says, is that there's no reason why we can't have peace, larger peace, in our lifetime. It just means about taking advantage of some of these things that are around us, either on an atomic level or on a person-to-person level. So don't let anybody tell you differently. And that's my presentation. Feel free to contact me if you want. These two things, Whole Child Educational Services is my website. I haven't touched it for a while, so I don't know what it looks like at this moment. Also, I'm going to be talking about, this is my book on Amazon, but I'm going to be talking about more specifically to implementing emotional intelligence concepts into families, classrooms, and schools at 11:30. So I'm the substitute for this period, and hopefully we'll get Lee on at some point in time so we can hear what she has to say. But thank you for listening. Thank you for staying with me. And there'll be a test on the quantum physics later today. Okay.
Excellent. Thanks, Bill. So I missed what number 5 was. Actually, I missed 3 and 5. I was trying to put them in the chat, but I missed. What was 3 again?
You're going to make me you're going to give me the test.
Yeah. Melissa, what's number 3?
Right. Number 5, I remember, is basically the one about the ancient Vedic sayings. They say that basically, let me see if I share this again. They basically, number 5 is these Vedic sayings. We've talked about this before, you and I, that if you want to be in a peaceful state or consider yourself in a peaceful state, you have to be living with Seva, Simran, and Satsang. With these actions, harming no one, benefiting everyone, remember your true nature, and belong to the Satsang community of peace and wisdom. 4 was the quantum physics one.
Yep.
And
which I'm studying.
3 is people have done it before. So there are people that have successfully, who have gone before us, have changed the world, done something on a grand level that has made changes. So it's possible. And this is where I kind of started with everything, is trying to get people to stop rolling their eyes when people want to, say to them that they're trying to change the world, or their class is trying to change the world, or whatever. So there you go.
Great. Okay. Well, I had never heard that about the Vietnam War starting because you didn't get a letter. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I have heard the quantum physics one before about things affecting other things. That's incredible, actually. You've told me a couple of times about that, and just that's amazing to me that we can have that much effect, and the butterfly effect on other people. And we say, watch. What did they say? Don't worry that they're not listening. Worry that they're watching. That their kids, especially kids, are watching us, because what we do does affect. Actually, Melissa we were talking about this earlier about her kids and grandkids, and how we kind of can set an example for them and be there with them in ways that are going to affect them. They are definitely going to affect them.
And kids are a great example of being around sponges, kind of thing. They hear and see everything, even when we think they don't, and they can sense things too. And so it's really critical, especially for anybody that works with kids, to realize that every little tone of voice said in anger or something like that, is recorded, and can give can change people's lives, actually, by not smiling or saying it loud or something like that. And so it's a huge responsibility. And then if you think about the greater good, all these people we work with are going to ripple out, and they're going to carry whatever messages that are important to them out to the rest of the world, and so on. Right. So that's where you get an exponential growth and stuff.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being on and doing this, because most of the people are talking about inner peace, and they're talking about, some maybe some social peace, but you're talking about big peace, and not too many people talk about that, and not too many people have some real answers for that. That's pretty neat. So congratulations on coming up with the top 5. That was pretty cool. And thank you again for sharing that with us. And so good stuff. So we will see you again in about an hour or so, and hour and a half, and we will talk then. But we're going to end this one now and go to the next, which is John. So I'm going to stop the recording right now. Boom.
Great.